If it's available, it doesn't mean that that supply chain is reliable. They both lost competences and engineering capabilities to actually produce something that is essentially invaluable for their economies. It's either you're geologically blessed or not.
Today on The Big Question, I'm joined by Kanat Sharlapaev, Kazakhstan's Minister for Industry and Construction, to discuss the role Kazakhstan could play in Europe's green future. Well, welcome, thank you very much for joining us. Can you explain exactly what heavy rare earth elements are and why they're so important?
And rare earth is a bit of a misnomer, right? Because they neither earth nor rare. Lithium, for example, right, is not a uncommon element, but economically extractable lithium is quite rare. The materials are particularly critical to green transition. That's one thing. And the other thing is, of course, they're heavily used in the electronics manufacturing.
According to a study by Brookings Institution, in 2023, China was producing about 60% of the world's rare earth elements and processing kind of 85 of them. What do you think is the current problem with relying so much on one country?
We very often confuse availability with reliability. If it's available, it doesn't mean that supply chain is reliable. And therefore, a lot of people talk right now about friendshoring, about making sure that the security of supply is more relevant than the price or its availability. In many cases, when some of the countries have chosen to basically shift their manufacturing to various locations, they both lost competences and engineering capabilities to actually produce something that is essentially invaluable for their economies. It's a decade-long process that led to the situation where resources became very heavily concentrated in very specific locations, and then processing capacity became very heavily concentrated. And I think in this case, it's not just about competition, it's also offering a reliable and secure supply of critical elements. If you think about European Union, I think out of 30 odd elements on the European critical mineral lists, Kazakhstan has 17 or 18. But it's not just we have them in the ground, we are actually able to produce them.
So thinking on the kind of green transition and electric vehicles, for example, you know, the metals that go into those, what's kind of the current output abilities of Kazakhstan, and what could the output become in the future?
It's a very, very complicated question, to be honest, because if you think about it, solving the electric vehicle battery problem, it's a spectrum of solutions. It's not like this one prevailing technology. Like internal combustion engine, it is obviously some engineering improvements, but underlying technology is fundamentally the same. Now, if you think about the battery composition, so there is obviously L1MC battery, which is lithium, nickel, manganese and cobalt. It's one of the kind of major technologies right now out there. Then there's an LFP battery, which is the lithium, ferrum and phosphate. The metal composition is of course relevant, but getting it to a state where it can be used in a battery, that's processing. It's a technological process. Take manganese. In the LMC battery, in order to produce the battery, you need high purity manganese sulfate. And we're already producing this in Kazakhstan. And right now we're basically expanding our capacity to potentially about 10% of the global manganese sulfate market. It's a precursor for a battery. So it's what goes into the cathode of a lithium battery. And the same, for example, phosphates. Kazakhstan is blessed with one of the largest phosphate deposits in Eurasia. We're already using them to produce fertilizers, but we want to expand the product lineup to include the battery-grade materials. It's now enhancing that processing capability, and luckily for us, this is one very big distinct quality of the Kazakhstan's mining sector. If you go to an average mining company anywhere and around the globe, what you find, you'd probably find a material expatriate population that's operating those mining sites globally, not in Kazakhstan. 99% of our workforce is actually our local people. So mining sector right now employs about 200 20,000 people in Kazakhstan, and majority of them are from Kazakhstan, and it always surprises our international partners when they come in and visit our mining sites and where's your expatriates? Well, we don't need any because we have retained a lot of competences and developed a lot of competences over the years, and mining engineers, geologists, they're all homegrown talent.
You know, as you kind of look to grow this sector further in the future, what kind of could this do for the citizens of Kazakhstan? What could it add to the country's GDP?
Look, I think if you think about Kazakhstan, we're about $270 billion economy right now, and we're growing relatively fast. Last year we grew about 5.1%. And this year so far, it's 3.7% of GDP growth, and we're hoping to get even higher at the end of the year. And the mining sector have been contributing always to between about 12 to 15% of GDP. And I think that contribution can grow. Kazakhstan is exporting 400,000 tons of copper and a lot of the concentrate as well. If we extract that concentrate and then export it abroad, some value will be lost and retained by the country who is processing our concentrate. So we want to basically be able to process the concentrate. And if we move from concentrate to copper and then to some ready-made goods out of the copper, it also increases the value that's retained within the country. Yes. And I think that's kind of the ideology that we're pursuing when we look at the expanding contribution of the mining sector to the GDP. Last year, the geological exploration in the country attracted about $200 million of investors' money. When we open a mining site, it can bring workplaces to the areas where it is very difficult to create jobs. So particularly in Kazakhstan, which has got this vast territory, 9th largest country in the world, not very dense population. So we create opportunities to boost the regional economy specifically, not like just looking at the central cities like Almaty or Astana, but our long-term vision is, of course, to deepen the value chain, to make sure that local content is used by the mining companies, and to ensure that we go from less complicated products to more complicated products.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. You can catch more episodes of The Big Question on the Euronews Business website and on YouTube.